All right, welcome back to another Gold Rush Weekly Watch List. Hope you all had a fun weekend, maybe a weekend full of rest, weekend full of excitement, whatever you search for. I hope you had a weekend full of it. So let's get right back into it. I have a lot of names to go through real quick, so I'm gonna just go through them very, very quickly. And again, these are names that you will be familiar with because these are the names that for the past, 6 weeks, 8 weeks or so, I like to keep the same names because the setups are so strong. They continue to give us opportunities to make money, right? Now, and excuse all the noise, like they're going nuts outside. But before I get into the watch list, I just want to talk about some of the things that are going on in the market this week. We had a week full of volatility. We have CPI on Tuesday, as well as FOMC day one. On Wednesday morning, we have PPI, FOMC day two, obviously, and then we have a speech by Jerome Powell, which I believe is at 12:30. And then on Thursday, we have jobless claims. So all three events, multiple events for the week that will potentially give us a lot of volatility. Usually during that time, the best thing to do is either sit in cash and wait for a proper setup, or scalp until you're out of buying power. Right now, during CPI, we normally or during the Fed minutes, we normally have a either or. We normally have a strangle that plays out. So you can do that. It really depends. I mean, we're all here looking for ideal setups, and during the week they usually present themselves. So I just want to keep everybody on their toes for this week. Even if a setup is extremely juicy, it doesn't mean you have to jump into it. Sometimes it's better to just kind of sit on your hands and wait for the volatility to exit the market. All right. So the first one that we have on the list is SPX. If you look at, if you just zoom out a little bit, you see that we have, this is obviously the daily chart on SPX, and we were broadening down on making lower highs and lower lows all of last year. And on October of 2022 is when we kind of found a bounce and have started trying to trend upward, right? Now, I don't consider it necessarily an uptrend. It is a local uptrend because we do have higher highs and higher lows within this price action here from October till now. With some really nice bullish setups, inverse head and shoulders, cup and handles, whatever you can identify with, they're all present here, right? But the main thing that I want to point out is, we have this high, we have a lower high here, the second lower high, and then like the second main lower high for the year, right? So now we're at the point with SPX where we're just about at that lower high, and we can potentially take it out and form the first higher high on these larger time frames, right? Like if I do the monthly real quick, right, SPX monthly, we have this high here, and now we can potentially form a higher high. Then we can come back and form a higher low, on the larger time frames. So this is going to be a very important pivot for us to take out right here at this level. At the high of this candlestick is 43.25. So 43.25 is going to be a very important pivot. As you can see, we kind of tested it a little bit on Friday's price action and sold off a little bit. Right, formed the red candle on this price action here on this level here. So it's going to be a very tough level to take over. But I think it's going to be crucial for us to, to start to think about this potentially being a bull market. Right now, it's nothing, right? I don't have an identity for it, but so I'll be looking for that level. Otherwise, I want to see SPX holding this line that I have at 42.74. We did dip a little bit underneath it a couple of weeks ago. We are in a larger broadening formation. We dipped underneath it a couple of days ago, right? This is an hourly chart. We have a broadening formation on the hourly, and so the 50% point on this broadening is right about here, 42.84. So we want to see if we can defend that 50%. I'm actually going to draw a line there. pretty much right at this level here, 5286 ish, right? We do have a level, a pivot right here. We did come down to fill this small little gap up, so maybe we can retest this low here before we bounce, or break it down and try to work our way into lower into the broadening. So you know, I'm not here to predict the future. I'm just playing the levels. And so if SPX, you know, we gotta have a plan for when it goes up or down. Let's just quickly look at ES. Let's do this one. So it's going a little bit higher. Again, it doesn't really matter until market opens, but if we do rip above this high, like rip above it and fill all this wick here, we have a potential to go higher. And then again, we can just get back to this level and then sell off again, right? So there's no telling. There's really no telling. So, but those are the levels, right? The level at 43.25. And then we want to hold that 42.86. If not, we can visit that 42.74. If not, we can visit the bottom of all this kind of price action here. And with all the volatility in the market, you know, with these economic events, I expect big moves. So that's SPX. Let's look at QQQ. Obviously, this thing's been going on an absolute tear. QQQ also has one of these larger pivots to take out. Now, it took out its August 2022 pivot. Right now we're working on taking out this pivot here of March of 2022, which is around 369. I like that it's building, it's kind of going sideways. You know, it did pull back hard on Wednesday, but buyers stepped in on Thursday and brought the price right back up. Right between Thursday and Friday's candlestick, we pretty much undid all of the strong pullback on Wednesday, and we even made a higher high on Friday. So it's a good sign for tech. Realistically, we want to have the rest of the market kind of doing the same thing, but right now tech is leading the rally. So I like QQQ. It's one of my favorites for the small account challenge, especially, and we'll continue to play it. And I'll give you some clear levels on this. Actually, let me just get rid of all of these levels, remove drawings. We want to break out above this high here, 357.50, which it looks like we poked our head above it on Friday, but we couldn't hold, and you know, everything in the market kind of pulled back a little bit on Friday. So that's what we want to kind of hold on to that level, and then we can basically play the range of Friday to the upside or downside. Otherwise, if we do stay within the range of Friday, then we can just scalp. I would, you know, until you're above or below the range, I would just scalp. Once you break below the range, you have a very clear target here at the low of the previous day at 348.89. And then underneath that, we have 346.20. Right, 346. I have 346.51, which is the low of this one here, this candlestick here. Above this, we can target 360, right? Break above the high, which was 357.66, we can target 360. QQQ usually moves around $2 or so a day. So, and on a really good day, you can get a nice move like this. You know, it's a $9 move, and on a really good day, you can get a move like this, which was about a $9 move as well. So, volatility, you can get nice strong days like these, nice trend days as well. So that's QQQ. Next one is XLE, energy sector. We did bounce off the support. I mean, we did break down a little bit, but found some support down here. It actually looks like it might be a demand zone based on the way that it moved, right? Look at how it just bounced out of this level, came back, retested the previous rising support level, and then bounced again. And now it's kind of bull flagging. We do have an inside bar on Friday, so that gives us, if you would like to play energy, that gives you a nice target to the upside and to the downside. You can just play the break of Friday's candle into the highs and lows of Thursday's candlestick. I like it better to the downside right now, but you know, we'll see what happens. But those are your levels for XLE. Next one's XLF. XLF did the same exact thing. It kind of gave us our bounce out of the support, the rising support level. And then on Monday it pulled back a little bit. Tuesday it gapped up, and it's just been consolidating ever since this gap up. Now I do like this a lot. I'm gonna go into the 2 hour. The reason why I like it is because it formed a double bottom on that rising support line. It's also kind of a cup and handle. If you look, it formed all these lows and then rounded up, and then now it's kind of going sideways within this channel here. So there's a potential for this to really explode out of this resistance level at 33.40. What is this? 33.43 into 34 and 35, right? Within the next couple of weeks. So I think it's very interesting for XLF. It feels like everybody forgot about what's going on in the banking sector, but I like the setup technically. So let's see what happens. So the first of the tickers is Apple. Let's see. I'm sorry. I'm just answering a text message related to our calls. All right. So the Apple, now Apple, I always watch Apple as kind of an indicator for SPX, right? If you see like SPX or SPY or QQQ, whatever, if you're keen on watching those and you want to see kind of where things are gonna go, always look at Apple. You know, if Apple's going in the same direction and has the same setup as QQQ, then usually they're gonna go in sync with one another. If SPX is going up, but Apple looks like it wants to go down, that divergence usually proves to work in the favor of SPX typically, right? Sometimes it doesn't, but so I always watch Apple because if I'm too bullish, is Apple bullish too? Is it? It is. Cool. Then let's go. If not, then let me hold my horses and kind of rein it in and see what happens to the downside. So you know, so Apple's just one that always stays on the chart. I ran this fib level from, I believe, let me see, is it from here? Yeah, I did it from Wednesday, May 24th candle. You know, the high of this candlestick here on June 5th to the low of Wednesday, May 24th. And it gave me these three key golden fib levels. It pulled right back into the 50% fib, and then it bounced. And then it formed kind of an inside bar on Thursday, and then we broke to the upside on Friday, but then we pulled back off of that 786 fib. So I think that Apple might get stuck in between these two fib levels, between 181.86 and what is that, 179.44. Now we did form an all-time high on this candlestick. I believe that there's a bunch of sellers sitting right in this wick, right? I think that wick is full of sellers. There's a potential, every time you reach all-time high, I feel like there's a demand zone, or sorry, a supply zone sitting right in that level. Plus we have previous supply from the previous all-time high, which may or may not be filled depending on, you know, orders be filled depending on all this price action here. So I probably wouldn't take a trade on Apple early in the week until it shows strength or weakness, like good strength or good weakness, very clear move, which it probably won't based on CPI, PPI, FOMC, right? So maybe we'll get something out of it tomorrow, but I want to see it overtake some of these fib levels, right, to the upside or downside. If it breaks below the Friday low, you can target this fib, which is right around 50% of Thursday's candlestick. And then underneath that, you can target the low of the week. But then above it, you can target 182.99, and then above that, you can target the high, all-time high, which would be 185, pretty much. So keep Apple in your chart. I mean, why not, right? Next one's AMD. AMD, and then so if you see my fib levels, and then you see my line. The line, I usually draw my line on where I drew my fibs. So AMD, after the gap up with NVIDIA, kind of pulled back a little bit. You know, as Jake said, it swept the lows and found some interest, some buyers at this level. Wednesday, we had that strong pullback in the market. And then Thursday, Wednesday we pulled back. Thursday, we kind of undid 50% of that previous move. And then Friday, we gapped up. A lot of sellers in this area. That 786 fib is proving to be very tough to hold. So I think that's the area that we want to kind of hold in order to continue to work our way up. Or otherwise, we have that little small gap to fill to the downside on AMD from the low of 123.55 into the close here at 121. So it's about a $2 move, 2 and change for AMD to the downside if we do get a downside setup. Otherwise, if we hold that fib, hold this fib level here at 125.41, we can try to take out the high of day and then target the high here, the high for the week, which is $130.79. So it really depends on what the market does. This challenge has been very helpful for me to kind of like not rush into some of these trades. I know that like market opens and I'm smashing calls, but you know, this challenge has helped me to kind of like make sure that we align with the market, make sure that the setup is there, wait for the pullbacks, wait for the retracements, etc. So I hope that you're finding it useful as well. And so, you know, I say that to say basically we'll see what happens. I think this is a really good setup for both upside and downside. And we'll see what the market gives us in order to then see which way AMD is going to go. And I think AMD is good for a move either way, right? So next one is Amazon. Same thing. Amazon I got some fib levels here. Now I have these previously, these levels that we were previously interested in. We crossed through all of them, and that's why they're dashed lines. See, a bunch of sellers came in and didn't quite show the same strength as the rest of the market did. Amazon. So underneath this previous level here at what is that, 123, we can come down. There's a nice $2 move into the 120.86, 50% Fibonacci level. Pretty much at the bottom of this candlestick, right? Like, as long as if buyers don't step in, then we can come back and target the bottom of this candlestick here on Wednesday. It looks like there's a lot of sellers that are interested in getting this price down based on this big candlestick and then the fact that we didn't gap up the way that everything else did. It's almost an inside bar, but buyers did bring it up higher than the previous day, but they couldn't hold it higher, and sellers came and brought it way down. So I'm interested in Amazon underneath 123 into 122.40, and then from there to 120.86. Otherwise, if we do fill these wicks up, we can then try to target the previous day's high on Wednesday at 127.37. Looking at the weekly on Amazon, we formed a doji. So if this thing goes sideways a couple of weeks, I mean, I won't be mad at it, right? Build some volume at this shelf here, right at these key levels. And we can kind of form a cup and handle here, right? We have the cup, we can kind of form a handle going sideways for a couple of weeks, letting buyers and sellers kind of work out where they want price to be before one of them takes over, right? Up to the upside or to the downside. So I won't rush into an Amazon trade, but unless we obviously get a clean break, there's like a little bit of a gap fill from 127 up to 135, which will be nice. But again, no rush, right? And then underneath this 119.98 level, we can target these lows over here at 115. So either way, they would be a nice setup, but I needed to break out of that consolidation that it's doing right now. Pretty much break out of the range of this candlestick here, which is high of 127.37, low of 120.63, right? Next one is Coinbase. Coinbase has been wedging. Now the wedge might be my wedge might be a little dirty, but it is what it is. You can see that basically price is getting tighter and tighter. A lot of buying pressure on this candlestick on Friday, June 3rd or June 2nd rather. And then buyers couldn't take it above the previous day's high. And so on Monday, they dropped it low and then it gapped down. I actually gapped down on SEC news. With the SEC suing Coinbase, and then buyers stepped in and brought it up as they usually do because I guess they saw value in it. So right now, I mean, the volatility on this is based on what's going on in the news. It's a news play at this point. I think that there's an opportunity for this to make a big move out of whatever happens with the SEC. I don't think that people who go against the SEC typically win, but who knows, right? Who knows? And even if they settle out of court. Which they might, just the fact that you resolved your issue with the SEC might be a nice catalyst for a bullish move. So let's just watch the news, watch the price action. If there were no news at play, it fell out of it fell out of my wedge and then climbed back into it. So that's a little bullish. There's a little bit of a volume gap between this this close here at 58.71 and this close here, this open here at 55, a little $3 gap. So nice little gap to fill right here. Let me just draw it. Right, nice little gap to fill there. The wicks, those could be a 1 minute wick, they could be a 10-minute wick, they could be a half-hour wick, whatever. But I usually don't count wicks in my volume, so we want to see that little gap fill up. We can come back down easily to test the lows of the week, which is down here. We can easily go back up and retest the high of the week, which is down here, right? The weekly on this is pretty nuts. But good volatility on Coinbase. And I think that as it reaches the end of this wedge and price gets tighter, we're going to get a nice big move to the upside or a big move to the downside. We do have that weekly inverse head and shoulders still intact. So we'll see what happens. And by the way, admittedly, I haven't had a great read on Coinbase. I'm like 3 for 10 on Coinbase. So if you see me put out a call, maybe you just jump in puts and you'll make some money, right? But if you like Coinbase and you agree with the sentiment and you see a setup go ahead and call it out for us. Otherwise, just know I have a good level of self-awareness, and Coinbase is not one of my best. I don't have the best track record, so just keep that in mind. Next one is Meta. Let's look for the weekly real quick. Now I have this blue line here at, it looks like 264.95. Oh, sorry, that's a fib level. What's going on? Did we freeze? There we go. Weekly. Now I do have my 1618% fib, which is at, let's see what that number is, 264 something 264 62. Now what I did was I drew a Fibonacci from this high to, I believe it was this low here. Let me just double check. Oh, it's this high. From this high to that low. And I got these levels as the 786, 618, 50% fib. Excuse me. And then that drew out a projection to a 1618 Fibonacci level, which is over here. Actually, sorry, this 1618 fib comes from here. My high, my low, little retracement, and then a completion of a move into the 1618. Now I went straight to that 1618, and then they put in a little sell pressure here. I did note that I'm looking for support at this level as of last week. It looks like we're holding support, so that's quite interesting. On the weekly, my final target is 322.50. We do have some of this gap to fill on the weekly up into this candlestick at 297.54, and then the 1618 from the local low and high, which is from here to here, would be the next target if we can hold support here, right? If we hold this support, the next target would be that 292.67. Now going on to the daily. So it's a weekly, so you got to give it some time for that move to develop. Give it another 2-3 months for this final move to develop. Looking at it on the daily, none of this is far. Like, we're at 264, $60 move will bring us up to 322. It is a big move, but I mean, look at how this thing has been gapping, right? It moves on catalyst. So big gaps down, big gaps up. Usually earnings is the catalyst. So it might take a little while for Meta to continue developing some new price, finding its bearings at this new level up here, and then working its way into the next earnings, which is in August, I believe, or July, end of July. Now looking at the daily, price did kind of close right above that 1618 fib by like pennies, right? The close on this candlestick is 264.95, and we're at 264.57 on this 1618. So, we're 30 cents above where we need to be here. I needed to stay above. I need like a candle to print above this level, clear above this level, right? Otherwise, just looking at this from the perspective of each candlestick, you have some selling pressure at the top of this candle. You have some indecision here. You got a lot of selling pressure forming a hammer here, a lot of selling pressure forming a hammer here. Big red candlestick bringing price back into the previous level of resistance between these two candles. And then buyers and sellers fighting pretty much between these two candlesticks with some good sell pressure at the top of these candlesticks. So it looks like sellers are in control. If indeed sellers take control of this, there's going to be a very nice downside move. Underneath that level there at 258.45, we have this very clear target for me at 252.93, and then underneath that level we have this target here at 245.28. Now if we can break out above the high of clean sweep above the high of Thursday's candlestick, then we got kind of a pivot machine gun working in our direction, going through Thursday's price, Thursday's high, Wednesday's high, Tuesday's high. Above Tuesday's high, I expect some consolidation above this level at 276.57. From there, we can get to 280 pretty quickly. So those are your levels, very clean. I like it better to the downside personally, especially since it's not showing strength the way that like AMD did, for example, or QQQ, for example. So I do like it better to the downside. You could take it, the risky play would be break the low of day at 261.70, and you could take that straight into 258.45. The safer play would be to break the low of Thursday, which is also the low of this day here, of Wednesday, May 31st. Take the low there, break it down into the 253.17 level. And also, if you look over to your right, you see there's not a lot of volume underneath the low of Friday, right? There's a nice big gap here underneath the low of Friday, so it can move through these levels very, very quickly. So just be mindful of that. If SPX gives us a downside, a red day, or we get a nice negative reaction to FOMC or to PPI, CPI, which means if the CPI numbers are higher, right? PPI numbers are higher, inflation numbers come in higher, then that means that it'll probably give us a nice red day in the market, a nice red week in the market. So we'll see what happens. And if we do get that red day, that red week, then I think that Meta is going to be one of those plays that pays nicely to the downside. Next one is Microsoft. Microsoft, kind of the same setup. The only thing is, we did have this swing low here, swing high here. You see where I drew my little blue line, my trend line, or rather my fib trend line. It pulled back, and it's kind of holding that 50% Fibonacci. So it's holding up at right around 50% of the move. It didn't undo more than 50%. It kind of did on this day, on Wednesday, but then buyers came and brought it right back up. Lots of buyers stepped in on Friday and almost squeezed it, but sellers came in and brought price right back down. It's stuck between a 618 fib and the 50% fib. I would play the fib levels as my entries and exits. If you want calls, I would take it above the break of the 618 fib, break, and then print a couple of candles, maybe a 5-minute, 10-minute candlestick above that blue line, depending on your risk level. And then from there, play it to the upside into that 333. Or you can break the downside, the 50% fib. The risk reward here is not great, only because you have a little bit of support here, obviously at the bottom of this candlestick at 322.50, but underneath the break of this candlestick, we had a nice move into 320, right? It's a $2.50 move if we break this candlestick. So I would wait, I would hold off until we get into this level, form the H, right? Here's your top of your H, form that full H before we break down and really can accelerate downside. Let's look at the weekly on Microsoft real quick. Some of these tickers formed the doji on a weekly. Microsoft formed a nice strong red candle on the weekly, pulled back nicely, and is finding some support here. So, let's just be patient with Microsoft and see what it does. Now if we draw, we did draw the fib from this week, 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago rather, into the high of last week, and that's where we got our fib levels, and we're holding those levels. Underneath those fib levels, we got some of these previous levels of support on the daily, previous lows and support levels. So lots of clear levels. Microsoft is a pretty good setup. Again, I like it better to the downside, but if we do hold, this is like a classic. Here's the first move, here's the pullback, and then there's a continuation move that it'll bring us into like 350-ish or so. So don't go in there with a bias. It just looks good. It looks really good to the downside based on all the sellers that are here, based on all the sellers that are still living inside of this candlestick. But if we do start to rip our way and work our way up to the upside, don't miss the move, right? There's a nice continuation move here possible for Microsoft. Starbucks, let's do the weekly real quick. I bought some more shares down here. I like it down here. It looks like there's a demand zone here based on the doji with an accelerated move up, a nice pullback, a lot of buying pressure here, accelerated move up, slow working its way down, buyer stepping in, continuation move here. And then 5 weeks back to back of sell pressure, strong candlestick, and then a nice little white green hammer at the end of a downtrend to form a potential reversal candlestick, but it really depends on what happens here, right? I like the demand here. I'll continue to buy it if it comes back. If it stays in this level, I'll load a little bit more. And what I mean by that is I'll take my scalping profits and buy some shares with it. But I want to see if this acts as demand again and works its way up. Otherwise, every time price gets back to this zone, it's eating up all those orders, and so demand gets weaker and weaker and weaker, right? So just keep that in mind. I do have my previous levels painted here in a dashed line at 96.17, 95.21, and 93.33. So just keep those levels in mind in case you're thinking of playing this to the downside. Otherwise, we have our levels at, and I would let the range of this candlestick break. It's a pretty big candle. I would let it break For a nice, clear, pronounced move, if you want like a longer swing, multi-week swing or whatever the case is. And I know I really haven't been into much of those lately. And I'll try to find some more of those, but I've been really into scalping, really into day trading, especially for the small account challenge. You want to be in and out, lock your profits in, onto the next, lock your profits in, onto the next. You know, the accounts compound very, very strongly. Looking at my results for this first week of the challenge that just closed, out of all the plays, and I don't know how many plays total, but out of all of my plays, 30 of them gave us 20%. So if you just set your limit sell at 20%, you hit 30 in a row, you know, or well, not 30 in a row, but 30 overall for the week. So, and I'm 30% of my goal for the month. So not bad. Starbucks might give us a nice move based on this inside bar that we have here. You know, Friday painted a candlestick within the range of Thursday's candle. If you know me, then you know that I like playing inside bars because it gives us a nice clean range. So let me do this in a different color, actually. Let's do it in like a blue. Right, you got the highs and the lows of the previous day as your targets upon break of the highs and lows of Friday's candlestick. So liking Starbucks. I'm also liking this consolidation pattern here where we've previously consolidated and ripped. I do like the consolidation. It can easily go down. I would like for it to go up, but it can easily go down. So it gives us opportunity in both directions. Next one is Tesla. Tesla's looking very interesting here. Let's look at the weekly real quick. Tesla gave us a nice bull flag, right? Extended bull flag here with a nice continuation move. There's also kind of an inverse head and shoulders here with your shoulder. Here's your head, here's your other shoulder. And you have kind of a, you know, and the neckline, I mean, it's kind of weird. There's not really a neckline here. So let's just forget about the neckline. Let's just worry more about, hey, price came all the way down here, made a strong move, pulled back, didn't go all the way here, formed a higher low, showing strength, continuation. Good, strong moves. Look at these candlesticks, right? And look at this massive candlestick on the weekly. So usually if you study some of these moves, some of those larger candlesticks at the end of a move show that there's a potential reversal or pullback. So just keep that in mind. Tesla's sitting on an island right now. It's sitting in between two levels. I have this previous pivot level here at 237.40 that we broke as of last week. And I have a pivot level at not too much of a strong pivot, and not much of a key level either, but there is a gap above that level at 257.50. So it's just stuck in between those two levels now. I don't really love playing Tesla on Mondays and Tuesdays, usually during the end of the week when the premiums get a little bit better and you can see the move a little bit better. But you do have it. You could treat this as kind of like, all right, you know, here's the range of the day, and then break above the high of day, you got this first target, break above low of day, you got this target here. And then you can play from there, you can kind of touch some of the previous candlesticks. So Tesla will be on top watch. I think that Tesla is going to continue its move to the upside based on what's going on in Tesla, in the company, what's going on in the market. Tesla just announced that they are partnering with they're allowing like GM and Ford and all these other car companies to charge at their superchargers. You know, so imagine you sitting there charging your GM or whatever the case is, or your Toyota, and you're sitting there for like 30 minutes. A Tesla comes in, pulls up, you know, with a dog in the car. Dog is safe in the car, and car is there for 15 minutes. And you're there for half an hour charging. I mean, it just reeks. You know, Tesla doesn't have advertisements, but like you pull up to a supercharger, and you're sitting there, and the technology works best on a Tesla, and Tesla drivers are going to be happy, and you know it's just going to be an ad for Tesla. So I think that works well in their favor. And also I think that they are releasing lowering the prices of their cars, which allows them to get more volume out. Also, all the volume that they get out is more of an opportunity to sell up to each of those clients. And then also they're building some sort of plant, I think it's a battery manufacturing plant in California. I don't know if it's in Pasadena or Fresno or something, but it's in our news channel if you want to check it out. You just search Tesla. DYT posted it on Thursday or Friday. And that's bullish. Obviously they're going to spend money on building the factories, but you know, they can start to develop some of these batteries for other companies as well, right? So nice potential there for Tesla. So I think there's a continuation. I also think there's a great price if you're interested in buying Tesla. Anything underneath 300, I think is a really good price for Tesla. Next is Netflix. Netflix has filled this gap from the this past earnings reaction. Netflix is working its way up. Now we've just been forming higher highs and higher lows. Here's our latest higher high. There is good reason for it to pull back and form a higher low, right? We have this low here. We have this low here. Maybe we could form a low above the $400 price point. Maybe we'll retest the $400 price point, right? Who knows? Just draw a quick fib from this high to this low. I got my projection. I have my golden retracement zone. So what did I do? I don't want that. So here's your move. There's your potential pullback area. Any of these three lines are safe to pull back to. And if we do hold at support in some of these levels, especially on this volume shelf right here at 402, then we can continue to move, and final target will be 470 on this. I think Jake had a 450 target for this for the next, I think this week or next, or 440, something like that. So good continuation in Netflix, as long as tech stays bullish and SPY stays, SPX stays bullish. Otherwise, you can play the break of the low of day into, let me just draw this in white. Break of the low of day into the previous resistance down here at the 786 level, or down into the low of the low of the range, which is at 396 and change. So good move on Netflix coming. I think that Netflix personally is very expensive at the beginning of the week, and I like for me to pay $5 for some Netflix premium, I'd rather buy some SPX. So personally, but towards the end of the week it gets much cheaper, and so you'll see me like on Thursday and Friday start getting interested in it. But if Jake calls something out, usually he's spot on with this thing. So you could just put your faith in him, and usually you can be able to swing it for a day or two. Next one's TSM. TSM, and I think, let me see how many more I have. Just a few more. Yeah, about 8 more. TSM, nice inverse head and shoulders, cup and handles, bull flags, whatever you want, right? Now we had this gap up from NVIDIA earnings. We did pull back into this low of this candlestick, of the gap up candle, and then buyers stepped in and brought it up above, formed that doji right above it. Price gapped up into the highs, and then sellers dojied it on Friday's price. So the way that I think that this is going to go is I think it's going to pull back to about 50% of the move, which is here, and then from there it can consolidate. It can go very quickly back up, or it can consolidate and then go very quickly back down, right? So the first thing I want to do is see how it reacts to this $100.85 level, right? And if you want to be nice and neat, you can just call it the $100 level. See how it reacts to that. It looks like it wants to go back to it based on the fact that it's whatever this thing is called, right? It's just a hammer. Basically, it's just a bunch of sellers stepped in and brought the price way back down. So at previous resistance, right? There could also be like a little bit of a supply zone here on TSM. So I would like to see it pull back and hold this level here at $100.85, and from there kind of make a decision. And TSM, there's another one that I usually rush into. It's good for 20% on the first move. Anything beyond that, sometimes you just get clapped, right? Look at these dojis. You get killed on these dojis. So just keep that in mind. But I do want to see it kind of hold this level and then work its way back up. I want to see it test that 105.62 level, and then I want to see it get to that 109.76 level. And then below that, we got the bottom of this candlestick, which is at 96.98, and then we have a nice little gap to the downside, which was partially filled on this wick. But I would like to see candlesticks form here, right? Better than these small wicks. And if it does dip down below in the 90s, I'm a buyer. I like it at those prices. Twilio. Twilio is another very nice setup in my opinion. We did kind of make a strong move to the upside. You see where I drew my fib from the high here to the low here. You do see a bunch of sellers sitting in this area. Let me just bring this. And I realize I haven't been using any moving averages on this, and I want to go back to Starbucks with a move because I know that it failed based off a moving average. So we got this strong move, and then we have a nice kind of pullback. It pulled down below the 786 fib. It's well above its 61% fib, and it's well above the 50% fib. I don't want to see it retrace down to this 50%. I want to see it, maybe I want to see, like, you see how there's a bunch of sellers in these two wicks here. Maybe I want to see it pull back into this previous support, previous resistance level here at 6150. I'm actually going to draw a line across the screen. There's a bunch of activity at this level, right? You see a bunch of buyers all across this line. Sellers on this line, here, all these days, a bunch of sellers. Sell pressure, kind of closed here, kind of flush through it, sellers, and then buyers, right? So I think that this level here is magnetic. That orange line at 6120. So that would be a nice safe spot for this to kind of pull back to and then continue its move up. Twilio had good earnings. A lot of the names in that space had really good earnings, so I expect there to be a continuation move based on what I'm seeing, but again, it needs to hold that 6120 level. Next one's Akamai, which is again in the semiconductor chips sector. It gapped up on its own earnings, gapped up, continuation, and then where Nvidia kind of made this strong move to the upside, found a bunch of resistance here. You see, like, it opened here and a bunch of sellers came in. Next day opened, tested that level, bunch of sellers brought it down. Next day gapped up, opened up at the right at the level, bunch of sellers brought it back down. Now we're at the bottom here and we got a lot of buyers and sellers fighting. We formed the doji, so I think there's a continuation to the upside. It can even come back down, retest the low, and then bounce up. I like where it's at right now. I would like it outside of the range, so I wouldn't trade it inside of this range. So I would just keep, if you're interested in it, maybe, if you're risky, take the break of the high and low of the day. Otherwise, just trade the range between 93.89 and 91.77. That's your range for AKAM. And this one usually will give you a few days of a move, right? Like if you would have bought puts here on this day, you could have swung it and been paid nicely on that move. If you would have bought calls pretty much anywhere, this day, even on this day, whatever. Usually it's good for like a nice swing as long as the setup is there. So if you see it, it will be a swing most likely. Marvell. I got killed on Marvell last week, and then I made I made up on it a little bit on Friday, but I got killed on Wednesday, and then I made up some of it on Friday. But we did get the gap up with Nvidia earnings. Actually, no, Nvidia earnings was back here somewhere, and then Marvell had its own earnings where it really accelerated, and then it gapped up. A bunch of sellers stepped in, brought it down. As I stated last week on a weekly chart, that Marvell needs to maintain support at this level, at this line here at $60, which it did. It tested it a bunch, and then it came, and buyers are just keeping it above that level. I would love to see it come back and test it once more. We do have a 2-up, which is bullish, a 2-up, which is range break of the previous day's high to the upside. I like that orange color. All right, so we got that range break to the upside. We got, what's going on here? This is what I want. Okay. We got the range break to the upside, so it broke Thursday's range up. It can easily break its own range, Friday's range down, and come back to that $60 level. Otherwise, break Friday to the upside and target this previous high here. Big wick, might be a bunch of sellers there. Some sellers that are still selling from this day and this day, right? So just be mindful if it does pop its head into this level. And let's go into the 1 hour. You see, every time it kind of loads up, it came here, formed an H, came down, buyer stepped in. Nice day on Thursday of last week, 2 weeks ago rather. On Friday, it popped its head up and then trapped a bunch of bulls, and then price came back down, consolidated all Friday, continued the move on Monday, and then bounced up into the previous, up into previous price level, held support. Nice strong gap up move in pre-market, caught me on this day, trapped me nicely, and then fell really hard on that Wednesday. Thursday kind of gave the bounce. Right, so basically what I want to say is, like, it gives you a nice pop up and then it gives you a nice flush, so I would let it maybe form the 1 hour candlestick first, see what happens. Like if it does this, form a green candlestick first, a red candlestick, give you a nice continuation move here. So don't get trapped like I do with Marvell. And if you see me post a Marvell in the first hour of the day, then maybe just watch it and see if the setup is valid, at 10 o'clock or so. And Marvell's it's one of my favorites to trade nowadays. So we'll see. I'm not great at it right now. I am really good on it. We caught it a couple days here. If you scroll back into the history, obviously you'll see where it's at, but it's tough within this new range that it's in. So we'll get to learn it as it gets to learn itself. Next one's Nvidia. Nvidia gapped up, is just trading within the range of the previous week's candle. It did test the lows and then kind of bounced. Nvidia's still kind of trying to find his way right now. Let's go to 2 hour. It's kind of trying to find his way between this new range. It did form kind of an inverse, or rather a head and shoulders. Here's your shoulder, there's your head, here's your shoulder. Pulled back down. Bunch of buyers like it at this level here at 375.50. So if you're interested in maybe buying calls, let it come back down to this level, see if buyers step in and then buy some calls. Otherwise, this looks like it's the top of the range. It gave us a nice little fake out on Friday. So either a breakdown or let it form candlesticks above this level, see some support, and then you can start buying calls. But I'll be watching it all week. Nvidia is one of the new favorites, right? Snowflake, was it the weekly? It was a daily. I was looking for this level here. It broke above it, came down, flushed, and then moved strongly. I think that was earnings. Yes, nice strong move on earnings. Nice little pullback. Let me draw the fib on it real quick. S is pretty good at Snowflake, so I would just watch what he says about it. But it did pull back and held at the Fibonacci level. It's stuck between the 786 and 618 levels. On the fib, 176 and what does that say? And 169, 176 and 169. So depending on what it does, I would just break out above the high on the fib or break out below this fib into the next one. I think Snowflake's going to continue to move to the upside. I think there's just a bunch of sellers here from back here, right? And over here and way back here. I think there's just a supply zone. Actually looking at it, I think it's right here. I think the supply is right there. All this, whatever is going on between the close of this candlestick and the open of this candlestick. A lot of selling pressure every time we go back to that zone. So keep that in mind. UPS on the weekly. Lots of support in this level. A lot of support in this level. We formed an inside. Is that the inside? Let me see. Low 166.18. 166.21. So we did break out underneath the previous low, and then buyers brought it way back up. So it looks like we want to try to test the highs, right? Test the high of this week, last week, right? 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. There's a nice potential machine gun pivot here, since we do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 back-to-back lower highs on a week, right? So we can get some nice price action busting through and taking out these shorts stops, right? So nice machine gun setup, especially with the consolidation here, especially with that higher low, right? Here's your weekly higher low, especially with the potential inverse head and shoulders at play on UPS. So I'll be watching UPS. They have earnings coming up in July. I think too far out for us to really think of a run up, but I do love the fact that it's slid and it's just bouncing within this channel. Lots of buyers like it here. Almost an inside day on Friday as well, but not much going on. With the red market, we got a red day, and now there's a potential for this to break through. So I like UPS to the upside. Caterpillar, cup and handle kind of vibe, or just price came down and then worked its way back up. Strong days. We did catch it on this day, Wednesday. We caught it. It was like one of the only things that was green in the market on Wednesday, where everything else was really strongly red. Nice continuation move here. Indecision on Thursday. Lots of buying pressure on Friday. So I want to see a break through that level at 236.17 and fill this gap here. But then again, this could also be a lot of sellers sitting within this gap. Although looking at it on the volume profile, there's not much going on there. There's not too much going on there, right? We do have a little bit of a node here at 239.90 or 240, let's call it. So I would set that as your target. 240 would be the target if we do get that breakout move. Let's see. Trying to hit that 240. I don't like that. I don't love that. I'm just gonna draw it right on the 240, right on the node, right there. That'll be your target. You know, there's a potential 4-bar play here. Upside move. Or let's do this. Let's do a 2-day. If you do a 2-day, there's a potential 3-bar play on the 2-day. Here's your range expanding bar that breaks out above all previous resistance, right? Breaking out all this resistance. Then you have your resting bar, which is a very small doji, doesn't retrace 50% of the previous move. Nice, not too much volume in that move. On last 2-day candlesticks, so Thursday, Friday. And now we can get a nice potential 2-day move, which means it would be a potential swing for us from Monday into Tuesday to reach our target of 240.02. So let's see. Let's see what happens with Caterpillar. JP Morgan still within this inverse head and shoulders vibe. Prices going higher and higher. We did gap up and then we pulled back a little bit, didn't fill the whole gap, and now we're working our way up, making new highs on the daily. So I want to see it break above that 142.41. Immediate target would be 143.84, and then above that 145. Lulu, gap up on earnings, worked its way up very slowly, found some supply, fell pretty hard, came all the way down, then gapped up again on earnings, and now we're working our way down, catching some support at some previous fib levels. I like it where it's at right now. And then we can try to test some of these previous levels here. I would go here, I will go here, and then I will go to that next fib right there on Lulu. JCat's pretty good at calling out Lulu plays, so I would just keep your eyes on it. I think that's it. Let me see. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. That's it, guys. Is there anything you guys want to look at real quick while you have me? Let's look at futures. Let's look at the 1 hour. ES was on this broadening formation as of last week. On Friday, it opened up above the whatever the news was that brought it up here. I think it was, I don't know if it was debt ceiling or if it was I forget what it was. I have such a bad memory when it comes to this stuff. Let me look at the trade floor. CCJ, yes, CCJ. Right, so we had that broadening, gapped up above it, and now we're kind of sitting here. But if you look at SPX on the hourly, you know, I just redrew my broadening, and we found a bunch of resistance here, little supply here, top of the broadening, working its way down, forming a potential H, can come down again to that 42.86. So I see CCJ, 1 day, 1 week. Continuation of strength on CCJ. It broke the high of the previous week, last week, right? Broke the high out. And then you see it just forming higher highs, just continuously forming higher highs on a weekly, right? Just a bunch of higher highs, trending upward. CCJ formed a nice, strong bullish move, and now it's just consolidating, looking like a bull flag. Not the cleanest flag, but it's definitely holding price at the top part of this flagpole. If we can, and it's a higher high than the previous high. And then, you know, if buyers like it here, then this can be the new low, right? The new higher low. So very, very strong. It is in a previous area of consolidation here. So if it can break out above, and I'm just going to use these older levels. Let's see. It closed at the open of that week, or that day rather. So we have some of this to undo. Maybe some sellers are still sitting here, but we have that to undo at 31.29. Above that, we got this very strong pivot. It looks like a lot of supply sitting here. Right, just look at all these candlesticks with all these wicks and all this big downside move. But if we do get a nice consolidation and continuation of this move, then we can easily just open our way above this, come back, retest it. I want to just zoom this down for more perspective. These are at $1 increment now, so it's a little bit more realistic. You know, CCJ has just been trading within this range. I actually do see a wedge here that's been broken. See that wedge that's been broken to the upside. So Pull that back a little bit. Right, price discovery, price worked its way up. Boom, formed a higher high, right? Higher than this high. Now we got to get higher than this high. And then we got to get higher than that high. Otherwise, and then let me just zoom into it a little bit so we can get some local targets. Let's do the 1 hour. I like CCJ. And again, it's good for a dollar move. And the premiums are very cheap, so you can load them. Let me draw a fib on this. I'm gonna get rid of this channel because it's confusing me. All right. So it pulled, made a strong move, pulled back, found some support here. There's like a little bit of an inverse head and shoulders going on here as well. You see your shoulder here, your head, and then here's another shoulder right at the 786 fib. We do want to see price get above 31.29. We do have this potential supply zone here, but then the final target will be 34.71. Let's do the 4 hour real quick. A lot of sellers sitting in this area. So 31 would be the level to break. Above that, we can target 31.29. Above that, 31.55. Maybe you just let all of that clear before you take it. Or maybe you just buy time on CCJ. But I do like CCJ. It's very strong on multiple fronts. Very, very nice chart. Very nice chart. I'm actually gonna mark it for the week so we can watch it together. And then DoorDash. Weekly. DoorDash is setting up very, very nicely on the weekly. We did have the rising support levels on the weekly, where it was just trending up, forming higher highs, higher lows. They didn't quite take the high out here, but it did on this past week. So let me just get rid of some of these levels. So we do have the uptrend intact. Just draw a line over here. Right there, looks like there's something. Little consolidation here. Nice continuation move. Let's go to the daily. Actually, let's go back to the weekly real quick. We're within the range of this candlestick, so that's what we want to target. I'll do it here. I like the top of the wick better because at the top of the wick is the open of this week. So there's multiple things going on, plus kind of like the area where this one sold off. There's a lot going on there. We're within the range of this candlestick here on Monday, the week of Monday, August 15th, 2022. And I'm gonna go ahead and draw a fib on that one candle. We rejected right at the 61%. If we can hold the 50%, then we've undone 50% of this candlestick. And a big majority of this move, we've undone a lot of this move here. So it's very bullish. I want to see it above that 72.58. Above that, we can get to 75.27. Then above that, we can get to the high of that week, which is 78.69. If there's enough bulls, we can touch 80 in this next couple of weeks. Let's look at the daily. The daily's pretty clean. I mean, let me just give you some more candlestick height on this. Yeah, the daily's pretty clean. Strong pullback, strong supply, brought it down, bounced on support, came back, bounced on support, retested the supply. Sellers took a little bit of control there, came back, retested supply, sellers took control, retested supply. Looks like there's no more orders in this area because buyers brought it up higher. Red candlestick on Wednesday. Thursday, we formed kind of a hammer, but then Friday, we made a new high. So if you like it, I want to see it hold that 70.69 level, hold this level here where there's previous resistance, right? Hold this previous resistance level, and then work its way into 75.27, which is the 786 fib for DoorDash. And if we do fall to the downside, we do have a bunch of volume sitting here at 68. So I would like to target 68 as your level for puts, and then once you get to that level, kind of close it, because it looks like there's support there. And especially looking at the volume shift, there's a lot of volume sitting at that level, so it can hold up price pretty well for DoorDash. All right, guys, that's 1 hour. My voice is shot. I'm gonna go drink some tea. I think we have a good week ahead of us. Let's go back to ES. I think we have a good week ahead of us. Here's the weekly chart. This candlestick just started forming, so let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Let's go to the 2 week real quick. We're in the second week of the 2 weeks, so it's not going to show. But anyway, I like it, right? Price can stay above this level. Let's zoom out. We're forming these newer trends. We gotta really stay above this pivot here. This is going to be very important in order for us to continue the move to the upside. This pivot here, let me draw a box on it. And thank you guys for participating on this call as always, and for rocking with us. Some of you have been with us for years, so much appreciated. Hopefully you're learning a lot with us. Hopefully you develop your own strategies, and you are happy with us as we are happy with you. I like to see price stay above this level, find some support, and then work our way. We're in the range of this candlestick. And this is a pretty big candle. Lots of sellers based on that big wick there. So I think that's going to be a tough candle to undo, especially with all the volatility we got this week. But thankfully we have our small account challenge holding us down, especially in June OPEX, which is this week actually is June OPEX. This Friday is the options expiration for June, which is typically very tough for tech. So let's just keep that in mind. We might have to rotate into some other names, some financial names, some energy names, some industrials, things like that. But again, if you're down with the small account challenge, you're taking 20% off every trade. Obviously these things can go nuts, but 20% is so easy to get, and you can get it so often. You can almost count on it, right? I mean, I'm going to go back and count how many trades I put out last week, but 30 of them. My goal was 25 for the week. I hit 30, 25% trade or 20% trades. Some of those including SPX. And 20%, man. I mean, it's just so easy, and it just builds on the account so quickly. And you can see, like, you can get 10, 20% trades easily in a week, 15, 20% trades easily in a week. So just keep that in mind. Obviously we can make we get good results every single day. Thankfully we're well equipped. Thankfully the market gives it to us. Thankfully we're able to identify those setups. Thankfully we get good entries, right? Thankfully we jump in and maybe it pulls back a little bit, but then goes in our direction. Thankfully we're, and if not, then we're holding ourselves accountable. We have our stop losses in place, right? Thankfully we're in this position. So reward yourself. Take 20%. You don't gotta go nuts. 35 this week. Yeah, I mean, if we do 35 this week, I went a little slower at the end of the week, so we'll see. But if we can do 35 this week, then that'll put me well ahead of my goal of 100 for the month, right? So yes, let's see. Maybe we'll cool off this week. I was on fire last week. Maybe I'll cool off this week. Don't humble me, Terry. All right, guys. Thank you so much for the attendance and for jumping in, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good night.